RadioOrNot.com and SoFloRadio.com present The Nicole Sandler Show. Truth to power, baby.
Good morning. It is the Nicole Sandler Show. We are broadcasting live at RadioOrNot.com, SoFloRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, also FilterFreeRadio.com, also broadcasting live on Liberal Justice Radio this morning on the TuneIn app. However you are joining us, good morning. It is Monday, April 28th, 2014. And as you can tell, this is not Nicole Sandler. This is Jacob Dean here. I host a program called Filter Free Radio. Hopefully by now you have gotten used to hearing me on Mondays on RadioOrNot.com. Though I don't do the morning show. I do the evening show Mondays right here at RadioOrNot.com, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio. It's our show about the status quo. We're fed up with it. We talk about how we change the status quo. We talk about how we mobilize the people to get active and be that change. We hope that we can reach one person every episode, make a difference in their life. That becomes a lifetime of success. That is also a lifetime of difference. And we're participating, at least at a very small level, and beginning the conversation with you. So good to be with you this morning. Lots coming up. This is going to be a very huge show. You're either going to love this show or you're probably not going to love this show. Over the weekend, there was a huge national conference up here in the Pacific Northwest organizing a movement around raising the minimum wage for all workers to a living wage. I attended the 15now.org event here in Portland. I have an exclusive interview with the one and only socialist, recently elected city council member, Kshama Sawant. I will share my exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant as well as her amazing speech. I've got other amazing speeches to share with you from the event. We're going to talk about raising the minimum wage. We'll talk about 15 Now. We'll talk about Kshama Sawant. Huge show coming up today. And this is also a little preview of what we're going to be talking about tonight on Filter Free Radio, so I hope you tune in for that as well. I want to invite you into the conversation. As always, we appreciate your participation. That's what small d democracy is all about, isn't it? The telephone number to call, you can call live. You can go on the air right now on the Nicole Sandler Show with me. I don't know how often you get an opportunity to do that. So, of course, we always have the comment line open 24/7 and also during our live show at filterfreeradio.com for your participation. We always want to hear from you. And, of course, a lot of people aren't able to listen to the show live, which is why Nicole Sandler has free podcast available at RadioOrNot.com. This is also why all of our shows are free and archived at FilterFreeRadio.com. If you're listening to us on the podcast, on the recorded, free iTunes, free YouTube, free Stitcher, all of the above, you can also call the comment line. I still want to hear from you. Leave your messages and listen to, the next podcast when we play your messages on the air. The telephone number that you need to call is 503-746-TALK. It's 503-746-TALK. I've got all of our contact info scrolling across the top of the screen there if you're watching us on Ustream. And my apologies to the Nicole Sandler, regulars. I'm not broadcasting live video on YouTube this morning. Nicole Sandler did send me the email on how to do everything, so we're going to set that up and be doing live video on Ustream and YouTube tomorrow when we fill in and on Wednesday. But also, just as I mentioned, we're not live on the YouTube, only on the Ustream on the video. So just a programming note there. And also a quick programming note, our super duper awesome mass producer, co-host, and kick-ass all-around brother from another mother of Filter Free Radio, Mr. Skeptical Scott. I gave him the morning off this morning so he could sleep in because we're going to do 2 more shows of Nicole Sandler tomorrow and Wednesday. And also, we are going to be doing our Filter Free Radio program this evening, again, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And Scott is my brother from another mother, and he's the co-host with me, as always. But I gave him the morning off this morning, so he would be willing to do the show tonight and then for the next couple days. So Scott's not here with us this morning, or at least at this conversation, but you can tune in tonight and hear Scott and I kind of rehash a little bit of some of this we're going to talk about today, and also share some more videos and stuff for you as well. A lot of people are familiar with Shama Savant. She ran as a socialist, as an Occupy movement candidate, as a socialist alternative candidate, did not take a dime in corporate money, not a dime, and won with people power in Seattle for at least, the city council member position has, limited reach on its ability to save the world and change the world. Of course, we understand that, but it's a very important first step at very, simple local grassroots levels. And it's an amazing story. I want to talk about it again. I've got an exclusive interview to share with you this morning, and that's coming up. So we are working hard, man. And I'll tell you, everything that I do is free, and it's available at our website. Every single interview that we've ever done, when we interviewed Jill Stein, when we interviewed Chris Hedges, when we interviewed Ted Raw, when we interviewed David Swanson, all of the above, when we've interviewed Nicole Sandler. She's been on our show a couple times, I believe, over the last couple of years. All of it is free. It's all at filterfreeradio.com. Okay. This morning, as you can tell, I'm not Nicole Sandler, and as you probably know, why Nicole is not here this week on her show, because she's doing double duty. Nicole Sandler is the regular fill-in for the Randy Rhoads show. Well, I'm pretty sure by now you got the news, what's happening. And I want to also mention there was a fantastic conversation that Mark Taylor Canfield, Space Dog of SpaceDogRadio.com, and myself participated in with the folks at ProgressiveRadioNorthwest.org up in Seattle last month, actually back on March 26th. And we talked about the future of independent media. We talked about the future of progressive media. We talked about the future of all of that and social networking and, nonprofit versus for-profit, community, listener-supported based models versus commercial ad revenue-based models. We talked about all of these things. And if you're interested in my personal take on why the Randy Rhoads Show is no longer going to be on the air, you need to check out this conversation. It's also on the front page of our homepage. And the last time that I filled in for Nicole Sandler, which was on April 9th, if you can go back and find the April 9th, 2014 podcast, we had the conversation again on the air on the Nicole Sandler Show talking about the future of independent progressive media. In a nutshell, my personal opinion, having been on the inside of that machine for a particular time between 2009 and 2012, this is why I started my show, Filter Free Radio, by the way, to blow the whistle on corporate media censorship and information control, and to do my own thing, to tell the truth, to break that, right? But I've been on the inside of the machine a little bit, actually at a fairly high level. I used to be the associate producer for the Thom Hartmann program. And I love Tom. My beef is, I have no beef with Tom, for the record. I love Tom. He's an amazing person. I would go back to work for him in a heartbeat. I can't wait to go back to Washington, D.C. to say hello again. And I wish nothing but the best for my, good friend, colleague, and former employer. My beef is with the system. And like I just said, the for-profit model versus the commercial model versus the corporate state takeover and the censorship of information. I'll tell you why the Randy Rhoads Show in a nutshell is going off the air. And it's the same exact reason why KPOJ here in Portland, Oregon is off the air. It's the same reason why KPTK in Seattle is off the air. Same reason why Green 960 in San Francisco is off the air. Same reason why WVKO in Ohio is off the air. That's one that, we're not all too familiar with. But the progressive radio stations that are in the corporate state control, Bain Capital financed, Clear Channel owned operations are being destroyed, clearly. Oh, it's a right-wing conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy at all, brother. It's so transparently obvious what's going on. The corporate state will not sustain, promote, or maintain, or definitely air anything that can work against its own best interest. Right? Things like progressive radio, right? And so that's my personal opinion. If you have, thoughts and comments on Randy Rhoads and Nicole Sandler and everything and this whole conversation, I also want to welcome your thoughts and comments on that as well at 503-746-TALK. The comment line is open, by the way. It's unfiltered. It's just me here. So when you call that number, it's going to ring and ring and ring and ring and ring, and it's going to pick up and you're going to be live on the air, or it's going to go to our voice message machine if I don't get to the call, and you can leave your comment there or go live on the air. But it's just me, so it's going to ring and ring and ring, and then you'll be on the air. So if you want to talk about that or anything else on your mind, callers do go to the front of the line. If you are a subscriber to the Nicole Sandler, email list, the E-list, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly what she calls it, but if you go to Nicole Sandler's website, radioornot.com, you can sign up on the free email list, get all of Nicole Sandler's latest news delivered right to your inbox. And if you're like me and subscribe to Nicole because she's one of my favorite, independent alternative voices out there doing the right thing and trying to get the truth out. If you're like me, you got this email this morning from Nicole Sandler. And I want to read this email on the air. I hope I'm not stepping on Nicole's shoes here at all, and that's not my intent. My intent is to share this brilliant message with you, and I'm sure Nicole is going to be talking about this on the Randy Rhoads Show, whom, again, she's filling in for live today, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhoads.com. Nicole is in for Randy Rhoads all of this week, randyrhoads.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And let me read this email. I just want to read this email. It's not too long, and it kind of sums it all up. And I think this is really important to share with, the listeners of the Nicole Sandler Show, who is not here this morning. This is from Nicole. I'm reading this quote. The title of the email, Radio's Goddess Retiring. From radioornot.com and Nicole Sandler. By the way, again, I'll mention you can sign up for the free email, list and get this delivered to your email free on a, updated basis as well. So you can sign up radioornot.com. Here's the email. The Randy Rhoads Show is ending on May 16th, 2014. There will be a huge hole in our days from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, and I hope that Randy decides somehow to voice her opinions and speak out on the issues of importance. I first guest hosted the Randy Rhoads Show on November 4th, 2009, and I remember this quite clearly as it was my 50th birthday. I had been fired from Clear Channel's then progressive talk station in Miami, WINZ, just 3 months earlier as they were preparing to change the format to become the 4th sports talk station in South Florida. Just what we need, right? Or not. In the almost 5 years since then, I've hosted my own show on Air America only to have that network go under and moved it to radioornot.com, where it continues today. Again, Nicole Sandler writing this morning in her email update to all of the subscribers. This is Nicole Sandler writing. Came out fresh, hot off the presses this morning. During all of that time, I've had the honor of being Randy's primary guest host and will enjoy that honor one last time this week as Randy and her family not only enjoy some time together in Costa Rica, but also prepare the house for an extended stay and starting in a few weeks. Although I'll have the opportunity to thank Randy and pay tribute to her on her show, which you should check out, randyrhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, live today and all this week with Nicole Sandler. I wanted to do it here as well. Randy Rhodes has blazed radio trails that many of us are privileged to be able to follow. I am one of those. She was dubbed the goddess by South Florida radio legend Neil Rogers for good reason. She has information and has entertained us for decades. On a personal level, Randy has quietly and privately come through in big ways for me at times when I really needed help, for which I can't thank her enough. Her generosity and caring ways are kindnesses traditionally reserved for the best of friends. Many listeners to both of our shows think that we are old friends. In reality, Randy and I have only met in person once at a radio conference a few years ago. Yet I cherish her as a dear, dear friend. While I'm guest hosting Randy's show this week, Jacob Dean of Filter Free Radio, hey, that's me, will fill in for me Monday through Wednesday on RadioOrNot.com, while I'll do double duty on Thursday and finish up guest hosting the Randy Rhodes Show this week on Friday. Randy will return for her final 2 weeks beginning next Monday. I'll mention Nicole Sandler will return right back here to Radio or Not on Thursday this week for one show this week. And I'll do my best to continue Randy's legacy on my show. Her regular practice of speaking truth to power, presenting facts, and giving you the tools to do your own homework while imploring you to not only believe anything you want to hear from the media, including me, but to do some research on your own and to vote and to be involved and to get active. We're making some improvements, as you may or may not know if you checked it out. Of course, you know, you're at RadioOrNot.com watching us, right? We've made some improvements to the RadioOrNot.com website, and you need to check out the new message board to pick up where the Randy Rhodes message board is going to be leaving off. A new chat room for all of you, all 20, 30 of you in the chat room right now to use during the show or anytime. Come on down. And as the old saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. We'll keep the door open. Thanks for listening. Sincerely, Nicole Sandler. So there you go. That's Nicole's email from this morning. And I'm sure she's going to be talking about that and talking about all sorts of things coming up today, live for Randy Rhodes, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And randyrhodes.com is the website. Of course, you can, hang out at radioornot.com and chat there and use the message board there as well. And it's good stuff. So there is, I just wanted to share that with you. And it was a great email, and I was happy I saw that this morning. There's lots of things going on in the news. I want to invite your participation on any topic you'd like to talk about. Anything goes. I love to hear from folks. I love to hear feedback. I love to hear what you are concerned about, and that way we're more able to address your concerns as well, which is what it's all about. We need each other, and anything that you want to talk about, callers will go to the front of the line, 503-746-TALK. You can also Skype into us, Skype Jacob_Dean. You can also email us, jacob@filterfreeradio.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter as well. But again, the telephone number is 503-746-TALK. I'm going to spend pretty much the rest of the show talking about raising the minimum wage to a living wage. But there is other news I do want to mention. I'm a huge basketball fan. Well, I'm a huge Portland Trailblazer fan, having, been born in Portland, Oregon, and born and raised for 24 of my 26 years, lived in Portland, And, for a long time, the Portland Trailblazers was the only thing we had as far as professional sports teams go. And you don't just get handed the title of most passionate fan base in professional sports for no reason. And Portland Trailblazer fans are very passionate about their Trailblazers. So I'm a passionate NBA fan. And of course, I am absolutely outraged at this horseshit comment coming out of this rich, white LA Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, which, by the way, let's be clear. I was talking with Skeptical Scott, my co-host, last night as we watched the Portland Trailblazers beat the Houston Rockets and go up 3-1. Yeah, baby. We were talking about how, and you should really watch the last episode of Filter Free Radio because that's what our whole show is about. It's about oligarchy. It's about wealth inequality. It's about how dynasty wealth gets passed down through their lineage. The Walmart heirs are not going to, have some sort of, awakening of consciousness and decide to give away all of their billions and billions and billions of dollars to those of us who have nothing, right? It's not going to happen, brother. So they're going to pass that fortune on to the next Walmart heir. And we talked about how those dynasty wealth will grow at a rate that's growing faster than the economy. This will become a problem. And this, and I was talking to Scott, I was like, dude, did you hear what this Donald Sterling dude said? And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm like, why doesn't it matter? And he's like, well, dude, you got to understand who Donald Sterling is and his dad and how he just essentially inherited all of the wealth that he had from his, wealthy predecessor in line. And when you don't have to work for things that you've got, you kind of take that shit for granted. And so on a much bigger and much, more racist example of that was the comments made by Donald Sterling. And essentially, if you didn't hear about that, or if you don't follow basketball or anything, here's this, rich old white dude who's the owner of, a really wealthy owner of this NBA team in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Clippers. And by the way, let's talk about for a second the Chris Rock quote, the difference between being wealthy and being rich. Michael Jordan is rich. Okay, Chris Paul is rich. LeBron James is rich. But the people who own those guys are wealthy. And the people who write their paychecks are wealthy. Okay? Chris Paul and what's the dude's name? Dunk champion. I promise I'm not going to talk about sports for much longer. But the other Clippers dude, Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin and Chris Paul are rich. But Donald Sterling, who owns them, is wealthy. And he inherited that wealth. He didn't, work hard for it, okay? And this is why you get comments out of these people, words to the effect of, well, I don't want my white, colleagues and my white relational people to be seen with non-white people at the games. Seriously. And it's like, dude, do you not realize the reality of what's going on in the National Basketball Association? Do you not understand how to be able to connect with your fan base? Do you not understand how to be able to connect with the people who are supporting you? Do you not understand how to be able to connect with the people who are supplying you with your wealth? And I get that they turned their jerseys around and they boycotted that, but that doesn't go far enough at all. Doesn't go far enough, man. If people really want to boycott that thing, stop giving your money to Donald Sterling. I don't know what the model is to, not give the money to the owner, but still, give some of that money if you're going to show up to the game to the players. But we should reorganize that. And not just in basketball, in society as well. And it's addressing wealth inequality. It's addressing capitalism. It's addressing the fundamental root problems in capitalism and why capitalism is the crisis. Capitalism is the cancer. It just doesn't, accumulate all of the wealth at the top by chance. You know what I'm saying? And there's also no like law of capitalism that says, there's no law of the corporate state that says, you know, you have to pay your employees as little as legally possible. There's no law that says that. They do that by choice. And as you can see, I'm kind of segueing into the next topic that I want to talk about. And that is raising the minimum wage. If you're not familiar with, here's my little protest sign I'm holding up that I got at the protest. If you're watching us on the video stream. If you have not been following what's happening with 15now.org and the fight for 15 and the movement of fast food workers and all of this over the last year, or if you have not been following the newly elected socialist city council member in Seattle, Kshama Sawant, and her amazing campaign of not taking a single dime in corporate dollars, maintaining her fierce independence as a candidate and as someone who is really trying to do their job as far as being an elected representative of we the people, to fight for we the people, to fight for you and me, right? And I really love her unwillingness to compromise with not only the political establishment, but with potential corporate donors that want to come in and buy up everything, right? And so for the next hour and a half, of course, we'll talk about all the news. I want to take your calls, 503-746-TALK. In about half an hour from now, we are going to hear from the Talk Radio News Service at talkradionews.org and get all of the latest happenings on all of that. But for the next more or less hour and a half, we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be sharing with you all of my coverage of the 15now.org event that happened here in Portland on Thursday, April 24th. And of course, we can also talk about the big national conference that happened on Saturday over the weekend in Seattle. 15now.org is the website. I have a ton of awesome treats for you prepared. You don't want to go anywhere. The first and foremost, my exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant on her inspiration and her motivation. That's coming up. I have her speech. I have her campaign manager explaining how the 15 Now movement will be undermined by the Koch brothers. All of that and more next on the Nicole Sandler Show, RadioOrNot.com.
The Nicole Sandler Show. Truth to power, baby.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks.
I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or Not.
Radio or Not.
RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
He's back, and this time he has eyeglasses. Yes, Rick Oops Perry is back, pitching himself for another presidential run. What fun! Who can forget the Texas governor's nationally televised pratfall during a 2011 presidential debate when he couldn't remember the third federal agency he intended to axe? Well, he later sniffed, if anybody's looking for the smoothest debater, I readily admit I'm not that person. But Rick, you weren't debating. You were simply trying to recite your own 3 talking points. 1, 2, oops. And the issue isn't whether you're smooth, but whether you're stupid. Way too stupid to be President of the United States of America. That's a role in which this Texan would need to match wits, not with such lame brains as Rick Santorum or Michelle Bachmann, but Vladimir Putin. But wait, there's a new Rick. As mentioned, this go-round he's sporting black-frame designer eyeglasses, which his makeover consultants insist make him look smarter. Actually, the bespectacled Perry looks like a guy squinting at the thermostat to see if he can get his IQ up to room temperature. This is the governor who's been hunkered down for 14 years as the chief executive of the state with the highest percentage of people with no health coverage, the second highest percentage of children with no health insurance, and numero uno in the nation for women without coverage. Then, when Obamacare was made available to provide insurance for millions of Texans, This Mensa in eyeglasses said, hell no, we don't need no government-provided health benefits. This is Jim Hightower saying, we? For his entire 30-year career in political office, Perry and family have gladly accepted platinum-level health benefits from the government for themselves. I'm guessing that even those $500 glasses he's wearing were put on the taxpayer's tab.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Hey friends, I'm Jacob Dean of Filter Free Radio, your home for unfiltered news, activism, and sustainable solutions. Listen or watch Filter Free Radio live Mondays, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern at our official website, filterfreeradio.com. It's a show about changing the status quo and mobilizing we the people to get active, participate, and be that change. Filter Free Radio is also available for free on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com, and Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app. And now you can hear Filter Free Radio on We Act Radio, 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., weactradio.com. Help us be the change and make a difference. Please visit filterfreeradio.com and keep up the good fight.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money in politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. Questioning Authority Daily. The Nicole Sandler Show.
Questioning authorities. Speak up and speak out. Speak your mind. That is, if you still can and you still dare. Hey, it's the Nicole Sandler Show, live, RadioOrNot.com. It is Monday, April 28th, 2014. Nicole Sandler is in for Randy Rhodes live today, all of this week. RandyRhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And as you know, or if you tuned into the previous episode, we talked about why that is. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here, as always, in for Nicole. Hope we're doing an all right job. We want to invite you to participate in the conversation, as always, at 503-746-TALK, 503-746-TALK. And you can also participate in the conversation at the free chat room right now at RadioOrNot.com. Hey, guys, 28 folks in the chat room, loving the conversation. Trumantown, it's National Breathing Day today. I did not know that. Now I know, and now you know. Happy National Breathing Day. Take a deep breath once in a while. It's a good thing. All right. That is if your air doesn't have a taste, right? Time to do something about that. Climate change, just saying. For the rest of the show, of course, we'll take your calls on anything you want to talk about, especially if you want to talk about raising the minimum wage, if you want to talk about the living wage, if you think $15 an hour goes far enough. I don't. But let's start the conversation kind of back at the beginning here. Back in 2013, let's step into the Wayback Machine and go back a year. I know it's a really long time. In Seattle, there was a movement, and it's still happening. It's going strong. They just had their big national conference over the weekend, and the movement in Seattle is poised to be the first major U.S. city to win $15 an hour. And let's just, be clear. It's $15 an hour for every worker, no matter what, period. And that's just kind of the beginning, right? But, it's a good start. Does it go far enough? What's your thoughts on that? 503-746-TALK. Would love to know. Voters in SeaTac, which is a small city outside suburb of Seattle, recently passed a ballot initiative for $15 an hour, which made national headlines, as well as the leader in the fight for 15 in Seattle, Shama Savant, who has made big national headlines and has shocked the corporate elite, and it's about time, by winning the city council seat in Seattle as an openly self-identified socialist alternative candidate. And also, newly elected Seattle Mayor Ed Murray has also declared his support for the $15 an hour minimum wage. But big business will not let this pass without a fight. And I've got an excellent video from Shama Savant's campaign manager to share with you on that coming up. They will mobilize their efforts to do everything they can to derail, delay, and dilute all of the efforts that we are working so diligently and so hard behind to end poverty wages. And of course, if we do that, well, then that cuts into their profit. That cuts into their millions and billions and billions and billions and millions and trillions and thousands of millions and hundreds of thousands of millions. And they don't like that because they need, they don't need, but they want to buy more power. They want to buy more politicians. They want to buy more judges. They want to buy more media. They want to control the whole thing. Welcome to the oligarchy. 15now.org is currently centered in Seattle, where the fight for 15 has been and has the best immediate prospects to win. But the aim is to create a nationwide movement. And that's why we need you. We need you in Florida. We need you in D.C. We need you in North Carolina. Moral Mondays. We need everyone in Chicago, in Texas, in Arizona, wherever you are. We need you. And we need you to participate. Okay, every one of those places I named needs their own Shama Savants on city council to start with. But we need to start also the movement to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, because I'm a firm believer in nonviolent movements as the solutions. Because it's pretty obvious you and I can mobilize to get President Obama elected or to get Dr. Jill Stein elected. But at some point, those individuals will be corrupted by the corrupt system, right? To whatever extent they may be, some more than others. But in order to combat that corruption of the status quo and the establishment, you and I have to be out in the streets. You and I have to strike. You and I have to boycott. You and I have to protest. And not just you and I, but you and I and our 5 friends and their 5 friends and their 5 friends and their 5 friends. See what I'm saying? And we're not going to get that message. You don't hear that message anywhere, right? That's because they are controlling the message. And they definitely don't want you to organize and fight for things that you need, maybe like $15 an hour. I can't live on $8 an hour. I can't live on $9 an hour. I'm trying. I'm trying to live on less than that, right? So the reality is we need you and me and all of us to get involved and to show up and to participate. You can, go to 15now.org and participate there. And also votesavant.org. Her last name is spelled SAWANT, votesavant.org. And I want to start with this video. This is actually like a 2-minute introduction given by the MC host of this event that I attended here in Portland, and just kind of setting up the conversation, setting up the event, welcoming everyone. And I wanted to share this with you as the first video that I share with you. And then coming up next, I'm going to share Shama Savant's campaign manager in his speech on how the movement will be co-opted, the movement will be undermined. The Koch brothers have already set aside, rumor has it, $30 million to fight this. Here is an introduction by the MC of the event, who I don't remember his name, but he's a local Portland, Occupy Portland activist for some time as well. And here is just a little introduction, kind of explaining the backstory here before we dive into Kshama Sawant's speech and my exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant. And also, I have a little bit of Nicholas Caleb's speech, and I got to tell you who Nicholas Caleb is as well. And then I've got to share with you, in my opinion, probably the most important speech of the night, which came from Ajamu Umi. And I know none of you have probably ever heard of Ajamu Umi, and neither did I. I'd never heard of him before either. And I've got to share with you how he blew my mind at this event and everyone else's mind. Are you a revolutionary? That's coming up as well. So here is the introduction of this event and a little kind of backstory about this. Check this out.
So how's everyone doing tonight?
Hey! Woo!
How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey!
What do we think about $15 an hour minimum wage?
Yeah! Woo!
All right. What do we think about a $15 an hour minimum wage? Wonderful. Let me introduce myself. My name is Micaiah Dutt. I'm a member of Socialist Alternative, the Portland branch here in Portland. And I'll be emceeing this wonderful event tonight. We're really thankful to have all of you come out and give us your support and give us your time. So we're gathered here tonight to discuss what we can do about a myriad of problems in our society. The huge chasm between the richest 1% and the rest of us is growing ever wider. Corporations are trying to profit off building the Keystone XL pipeline, oil pipelines, gas pipelines, and all sorts of other nonsense. President Obama has deported over 2 million undocumented immigrants, more than all U.S. presidents combined. Apparently that's what he calls hope and change.
Right?
The ruling class is spending billions on war and military interventions, from Iraq to Afghanistan, from Sudan to the Ukraine. The U.S. government spent trillions bailing out banks, and they continue giving tax breaks for the richest 1%, while ordinary Americans all over the United States are losing their homes, their jobs, and their pensions. Clearly, both corporate parties, Republicans and Democrats, have failed the 99%. Everybody knows that you have to accept corporate money and work within the corporate-dominated two-party system to get elected, right? No. Well, not so. With Kshama Sawant, in 2013, nearly 100,000 voters elected her to Seattle City Council as an open socialist. Woo!
Hey!
Despite recent Supreme Court decisions unleashing unlimited corporate cash in elections, in a historic breakthrough, Sawant became the first independent socialist elected in a major U.S. city in decades.
Right.
Now she and her Socialist Alternative political organization are leading the 15 Now movement to raise Seattle's minimum wage to the highest in the country at $15 an hour. And the movement is spreading to San Francisco, Portland, Chicago, New York City, and all across the country. This meeting is sponsored by the Vote Sawant campaign, but I really want to thank all the endorsing organizations, to include Socialist Alternative, Portland 15 Now, and Nick Caleb for City Council. So I'm going to begin explaining a little bit about my organization, Socialist Alternative. Socialist Alternative is a political organization that led the campaign to get Kshama elected and initiated the 15 Now, which is fighting to raise the minimum wage in Seattle, Oregon, and across the country. So $15 an hour. Socialist Alternative has branches in Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, and since we got Kshama elected, we're growing rapidly all over the country. We're also part of an international organization in over 47 countries known as the Committee for the Workers International that fights for workers' rights the world around. We have weekly meetings here in Portland, and we really encourage everyone to get involved and to help us fight for a better world.
And that's what it's all about. You and I showing up, participating, and fighting for a better world. Because, hey, the oligarchs and the plutocrats are not going to, just poof, fairy equal rights godmother, poof, fairy living wage godmother, poof. No, it doesn't happen that way. The fairy equal rights, human rights, social justice godmother didn't show up and give us a minimum wage. We had to fight for it. She didn't show up and give us the weekend. We had to fight for it. She didn't show up and say, hey, you kids, you should actually be like learning things instead of like working because you're too young. You don't have to work. No, she didn't show up, man. And guess what? Spoiler alert. She's not going to show up tomorrow either. She's not going to show up today. She's not going to show up next week. She don't exist. The fairy human rights, equal rights, social justice godmother doesn't exist. She is you and I, a.k.a. getting active, showing up in the streets, and participating and making a real difference. That's how those things happen. If you want $15 an hour, you need to fight for it. Non-violently, professionally, respectfully, practicing all of the key virtues that human beings have lost. And you can do all of that and still be a winner. And so there you go. That is kind of the introduction. Also, the reason why I wanted to play that is to talk a little bit about Socialist Alternative, which I'm not going to get into much on this episode on the Nicole Sandler Show with you. We may talk about it on Filter Free Radio. I'm organizing interviews and follow-up interviews from all of the people that I met at this event with, we'll be doing an interview, hopefully another interview with Nicholas Caleb, who's running for city council here in Portland. Portland needs our own Shama Savant. And I'm going to be speaking with the folks at 15now.org. I'm going to be speaking with all sorts of people. I had someone email me about, doing a show organizing and highlighting examples of worker co-ops in Portland. We're going to do that show. I've got so much work. I've been so busy. Some of it has already been published at filterfreeradio.com if you want to check it out. And again, this is a kind of a little sneak peek of what you will be tuning into tonight. If you tune into Filter Free Radio, filterfreeradio.com right here on Nicole Sandler's Radio or Not network, Monday evenings, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, which we do every week. This next clip is probably in the top, most important clips of the whole evening. I'd say top 3. This is Shama Savant's campaign manager. He's a longtime social justice activist. And in this clip, he explains very clearly how the 15 Now movement, all of your and I's activism, mobilization, organization, and work can and possibly will be undermined by big corporate dollars, by the Koch brothers. And it's very important to pay attention to this because this is not a, now we don't have to go get active and participate because they're going to beat us anyways. That's not the message here. The message here is anticipate those who are going to be fighting against us because they will be. They're going to come strong. They're going to come hard. They got a ton of freaking money. And you and I are going to have to mobilize, activate, and participate that much more to overcome that because the only thing that can defeat Citizens United is united citizens. Here is Shama Savant's campaign manager with the warning to all of us who are fighting for $15 an hour for the minimum wage, fighting to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Here's a warning for you from Shama Savant's campaign manager. What to expect the news headlines to come out in the next couple of months. And also in this clip, he explains, and this is just a side note, he explains how the corporate opposition to Shama Savant on last Thursday held a press conference in Seattle to push their propaganda. And even though Shama Savant and all of her organizations and everything have scheduled an event for her to be in Portland that evening, she remained in Seattle to give the press conference. But wait, there's more. Shama Savant was actually going to drive down to Portland after the event, after the press conference. Didn't have time to do that. They actually paid for her to fly down on the spot, very expensive plane ticket, and she showed up anyways. Yeah, she was a little late, but she had to fight their propaganda. And good on Shama Savant, council member Shama Savant. And good on them for doing that. And not only that, but she still came down to Portland that night and still gave an amazing speech, which I'm going to share with you. But first, campaign manager Shama Savant, the warning that you and all need to really pay attention to right here.
Right now I want to hand this over to Rami Khalil, who was Shama Savant's campaign manager in 2013. And he's going to provide us with a special announcement.
All right.
What's interesting is at the moment, due to all this grassroots pressure in Seattle, the corporations and all the politicians in Seattle have agreed to implement a $15 hour minimum wage. Especially after a poll came out that showed that 68% of Seattle likely voters would support raising minimum wage. Now the mayor and every single city councilor says that they agree with the number $15 an hour.
Wow. Right on.
So we've already won the public debate on that, which is incredible. And but the dangerous situation is that because there's so much public support for this idea, the corporations and the politicians, except for Shama Savant, are maneuvering behind the scenes to undermine a $15 hour minimum wage. They're saying they're going to pass some kind of ordinance probably in the next couple months that says, the headlines will come out saying Mayor and Seattle City Council pass a $15 ordinance, but they're trying to include all of these loopholes and exemptions in the $15 ordinance.
Of course.
They have this thing that they call total compensation, and the argument is if an employer is providing not only a wage to the workers but other benefits, then all of that should be included towards the $15 minimum wage, which sounds reasonable at first.
Boom.
What they mean is if you get health care benefits, if you get paid sick days, if you get paid vacation days, and if you get tips, they want to include all of those things towards the $15 minimum wage. So after this is passed, if all of that is included, it may not really be a $15 minimum wage. It could even be a pay cut. And another thing they're doing is they're talking about implementing a phase-in, a gradual phase-in for big corporations and small businesses. So that if they implement a $15 minimum wage, but they just gradually raise it from its current level of $9.32, but gradually over 5 to 10 years, meanwhile the cost of living has been going up. It really undermines this. So those are some of the tactics they're using. The other tactic that the political establishment is using is they've set up a committee. The mayor has set up a committee. It's called the Income Inequality Advisory Committee, and he charged this committee with the task of presenting him some suggestions about how to raise the minimum wage, doing some research and looking into it. Sounds reasonable. However, the committee is stacked with business representatives. He says that his committee is the best place to get things done because it has business and labor representatives. But Shama Savant has told me that she feels that she's the only person on the committee that is fighting hard for low-paid workers. That yes, there are some union leaders there, but they have this attitude of just trying to agree with the big businesses and the mayor and just find some compromise. And one of the people on the mayor's committee is currently in a lawsuit against SeaTac for trying to undermine the minimum wage that was passed there. And when the mayor announced in early January, after he was inaugurated, that he was setting up this committee, he gave Shama Savant 1 day he invited her onto the committee, and he gave her 1 day to decide whether or not she wanted to be on the committee. And he actually didn't think that she would be on it, but she did agree to be on his committee, partially because to undermine the argument that said, where they keep saying that she's a great agitator and a great protester, but she's not willing to work with other politicians or business leaders. So she did join the committee, but she also said that she wasn't happy with the mayor's deadline of June to deliver a proposal for an ordinance. She said, I will be on this committee, I will make an effort to work with you to pass a $50 ordinance, but if they don't provide a decent, strong $15 ordinance by April, then she's going to work with unions and activist groups to have a backup option, which is collecting signatures and putting an initiative on the ballot and let the Seattle voters decide themselves what kind of $15.
Yeah!
So after that, the mayor announced that he would increase his deadline. Instead of charging his committee with the task of coming up with a proposal by June, he said that he would come up with a proposal by April. So that he was making a reasonable faith effort to work with Shuma and low-wage workers who are demanding a $15 hour minimum wage. And 15 Now is organizing a national conference this Saturday. There's going to be over 500 people there.
Glenn Ford.
And the mayor just announced a couple days ago that he is going to present his proposals today for what kind of ordinance he would like. So he just had a press conference at 3 p.m. and Shuma Sawant felt she had no choice but to stay in Seattle and immediately respond with her own press conference at 4 p.m. today. And so that's all an explanation to apologize to you and explain to you why she's going to be a little delayed tonight. She's going to be a little over an hour late coming here tonight. But she is still coming. She was planning on driving. She's still committed to come here and speak to you. We bought a plane ticket, an expensive plane ticket under the circumstances. But we felt that the corporations are using Mayor Ed Murray to get their message across, and we are doing our best to get the message across for working class people.
Wow.
And we felt it was necessary for her to be a little late tonight so that she could get her response to Mayor Ed Murray into the huge news articles that are coming out as we speak.
Yeah.
So I hope you understand that it's for good reason that she's late. She is a rare elected official who's actually working hard to implement her actual main campaign pledge. But we do have powerful forces that are lining up to attack us. We recently heard that the Koch brothers, it was a rumor that the Koch brothers visited Seattle to figure out how to plot against this initiative. The National Restaurants Association it's reported that they've set aside $30 million to fight what we're doing. So we have very powerful corporate enemies that are fighting us.
Bastards.
And we are trying to use every tactic we can to get out the voice of working class people, whether that's through social media, the internet, but also the corporate media is forced to listen to what Shuma Sawant has to say. So she is staying in Seattle. She stayed to do a press conference right after Mayor Murray, and that is why she's delayed.
Good on her. Yeah. Woo!
And that is why she was delayed. So I'm going to share my exclusive interview with Shuma Sawant and also her amazing speech. And if we have time, a couple of other great speeches. That's all coming up next hour right here on the Nicole Sandler Show. So this is why you don't want to go anywhere. And again, if you're just joining us, Nicole Sandler is in for Randy Rhoads live 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhoads.com all of this week. The last week that Nicole Sandler will be doing live fill-ins for Randy Rhoads. So you need to participate in that. Make sure that you are 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhoads.com all of this week, today, Monday through Friday, which is why, of course, I'm here this morning to help Nicole with the workload, and we're going to do a couple more shows for Nicole on her show with you, and I hope that we're doing an all right job. Our website, filterfreeradio.com, and we're also going to continue the conversation. I want you to participate. 503-746-TALK. Aren't the most minimum wage workers just teenagers earning pocket money? Shouldn't workers who want to earn more get an education and a better job? Can't businesses afford to pay $15 an hour? All of that and more. But it is time to check in with the Talk Radio News Service here at the top of the hour. TalkRadioNews.com is the website.
I read the news today, oh boy.
And good morning. Who do we have on the line with us?
Hello, Victoria Jones, Talk Radio News. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning, Victoria Jones, the senior White House correspondent for Talk Radio News. Good morning, Victoria. How are you? What's in the news this morning?
Very good, thank you. Good to talk to you. Well, lots going on. We have sanctions being imposed on Ukraine. Actually being imposed on Russia about Ukraine by the United States and by the European Union. Starting with the United States, the United States has decided that they are just sick and tired of this, and they decided some time ago that they were ready to go. They're going to go after 7 Russian government officials and 17 companies linked to Russian President Vladimir Putin's inner circle. The administration's taking action in response to Russia's continued illegal intervention in Ukraine and provocative acts that undermine Ukraine's democracy and threaten its peace, security, stability, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, according to White House Press Secretary Jay Carney. Carney said also in a statement that since April the 17th, Russia's done nothing to meet its Geneva commitments and, in fact, has further escalated the crisis. Russia's involvement in the recent violence in eastern Ukraine is indisputable. So they're fairly ticked off.
Yeah. I heard, and I know that Obama said that they're not trying to go after Putin, right? That's not the goal. But rather to try to kind of, change, what was his word, calculus, something like that, on how, what's going on?
Yes, they're not going directly after him. They want to change the calculus. That's exactly right. That's what they want to do. They want to change the calculus. But obviously, by doing that, they're going to be going after Putin. I mean, they're going to hit him as well. Whatever they do is going to hit him.
Okay, right.
They're going to be getting pretty close to him. I mean, one of the things that we're hearing is that they're going to be going after the head of Gazprom, which is the gas company, and that's definitely going to hit him.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
So that's going to be announced as soon as today. The European Union is going to target 5 more Russians and Ukrainian individuals with sanctions, bringing the total number of individuals they've targeted over the Ukraine crisis to 46. And they're people that the EU holds responsible for helping to violate Ukraine's territorial integrity. The names will be published Tuesday, and they'll take effect immediately. Now, that doesn't include any businesses. It's harder for the European Union to do this, both legally, there are more legal restrictions on them, but also because they have far more business dealings, direct business dealings with Russia than the United States does. So this is it's a tougher deal for the European Union than it is for the United States.
Sure. And, of course, when there's money involved, makes any deal tough, right? So.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. There. Victoria, what else is happening in the news this morning?
Well, I mean, a lot of what is being talked about, of course, is the whole issue of what's going on with Donald Sterling and his extraordinary remarks about Ray Donald Sterling, the owner of the LA Clippers. That is being talked about. It's being talked about by politicians. It's a big pop culture issue. I don't know whether it's been talked about on your show or not, but it's something that's being talked about very much in the news. So let me know whether it's something that's being talked about on your show, and I'll tell you whether it's something that we should even be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I did mention it, Victoria, this morning. I am a basketball fan up here in Portland, Oregon. We have the Portland Trailblazers, and that aside, we did mention it, and my comment is I don't think the boycott of the players turning their jerseys inside out went far enough. I think that if you're a real LA Clippers fan and you support the players of the game who you're fans of, then we should be boycotting and protesting Donald Sterling on a more significant level of not buying tickets to the game, or somehow find a way to donate directly to the players. I don't know, but yeah, there's that going on, and it's just absolutely ridiculous, the disconnect that was displayed. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, and some of the extended comments that were posted by Deadspin are really quite amazing and sort of reminiscent, really, of a plantation owner. Now, bear in mind that Deadspin has said they don't know for sure if the recording's been at all altered, but he says, for example, and he's referring to the basketball players where he says this, he says, I support them and give them food and clothes and cars and houses. Who gives that to them? Does someone else give that to them? Do I know that I have? Who makes the game? Do I make the game, or do they make the game?
Wow. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's a spot on point of, borderline modern day kind of plantation owner-esque language, and it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic that we have not completely, moved beyond those kinds of things yet.
Yeah, it's so that is of course President Obama weighed in on that from, I think he was still in Malaysia when he weighed in on that. Of course, he's in the Philippines now, but he weighed in on that with pretty strong language. He called the comments incredibly offensive, racist statements, and said when ignorant folks want to advertise their ignorance, you don't really have to do anything. You just let them talk. And then he went on to say the United States continues to wrestle with the legacy of race and slavery and segregation that's still there, the vestiges of discrimination. And I think that we just have to be clear and steady in denouncing it, teaching our children differently, but also remaining hopeful that part of why some statements like this stand out so much is because there has been this shift in how we view ourselves.
Right. Absolutely.
So that was his reaction to it.
Mm. Well, I'm with him. I'm with the president on that one, and it's just that disconnect, and it's becoming more apparent, and how obvious the disconnect is. With those at the top, like the Donald Sterlings of the world, and I actually, to be honest with you, Victoria, I look forward to every time these sorts of comments get recorded and get published and get in the conversation, because it makes us more aware of, how they really feel. And it's, I think it's actually a good thing. So I'm kind of happy we did talk about it for a couple minutes. But
okay.
But is there anything else that's happening in the news that you wanted to mention?
The other thing is that Congress is back in session, and now not for very long, so don't get overexcited about this. But not that I expect you to. But Congress, because they can do an awful lot of damage in the short term, they're back. But Congress is back in session, and the House has set its agenda. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor sent out a memo setting the agenda for the spring, which effectively is sort of May, really, because they're not in session very long. Okay. They're going to take up several 2015 spending bills in the coming weeks. They have no plans to move forward on immigration reform. In the agenda memo that went out on Friday, there was no mention at all of immigration reform or a minimum wage increase, and there's no timetable for a GOP replacement for the Affordable Care Act. So none of those things are on the agenda, but they do plan to hold former IRS official Lois Lerner in contempt for her refusal to testify before Congress. And they do plan to have House action to overhaul federal charter school programs to support veterans to approve the National Defense Authorization Act and have several votes to combat human trafficking, and there's bipartisan support for that.
And did I hear you right that so they decided not to do anything with the potential minimum wage vote?
Yes, in the House.
Okay.
In the House.
Okay. I was looking forward to that. I've been following the 15now.org movement to raise the minimum wage, and I got to interview Shama Savant a couple of days ago in Portland, so that was kind of cool. But I'm disappointed on that one, Victoria. But I'm never disappointed with your brilliant reporting and everything that the folks at Talk Radio News are doing in Washington, D.C., and our nation's capital. Victoria Jones, the White House, Chief White House Correspondent for Talk Radio News and TalkRadioNews.com. Victoria, always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we'll talk soon, hopefully.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you again, Victoria. And folks need to check out Talk Radio News on their website at TalkRadioNews.com. And every time that I have an opportunity to fill in for the Nicole Sandler Show, which is occasionally few and far between, but every time I do get to fill in, I want to mention that the folks at Talk Radio News Service are good friends of mine, both on a professional level and a personal level. I love Ellen Ratner. She's an amazing person. She's doing amazing work, and I'm absolutely not paid a penny to say anything. I'm definitely not paid a penny to say that or this. I just, it's from the heart, and I mean it, and and her brother, Michael Ratner, is like an amazing person as well. I've got his book, Hell No, right here in front of me. You need to check out a website that Ellen Ratner has created and is operating, and it is to help the folks in South Sudan. You can actually make a difference to someone in South Sudan right now via Ellen Ratner, who is making a difference in South Sudan herself as well and has been for a long time. The website is goatsfortheoldgoat.com. Goats, plural, goatsfortheoldgoat.com. So check that out, and if you can, participate there as well. Participate at radioornot.com as well. It's the Nicole Sandler Show. Jacob Dean filling in this Monday. We will be live. We will be back. More about the minimum wage, my interview with Shama Savant, and all good things progressive and independent coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
The Nicole Sandler Show.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks.
I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or Not.
Radio or Not.
RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
This is the Media Matters Minute. I'm Craig Harrington. Conservatives spent weeks promoting Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy's dispute with the federal government, but now are rushing to condemn him after his despicable, racist views surfaced in the New York Times.
His comments are beyond repugnant to me. They are beyond despicable to me. They are beyond ignorant to me. I don't even want, just turn it off. I don't even want to hear it anymore.
Fox's Charles Krauthammer not only condemned Bundy, but also those who supported him in the first place.
And why conservatives, or some conservatives, end up in bed with people who, he makes an anti-government statement, he takes an anti-government stand, he wears a nice big hat and he rides a horse, and all of a sudden he's a champion of democracy. This is a man who said that he doesn't recognize the authority of the United States of America. That makes him a patriot? And look, do I have the right to go and graze sheep in Central Park? I think not.
For more on this and other stories, please visit MediaMatters.org.
Filter-free radio.
Filter-free radio.
Filter-free radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Talking about developing a new radical revolution of values. Talking about progressing forward. Talking about change. And if we're so subject to beholden to the status quo, we've prevented ourselves from progressing forward. It's like if Hillary Clinton is the Democratic Party, which she is, then it's time for us to abandon the Democratic Party.
Filter-free radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
1 + 1 is 11, people.
Don't you? I thought that. Anyways.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Bill Maher, you're here in Miami on Friday night. You're doing a show at the Fillmore at the Jackie Gleason Theater. They just renamed this theater the Fillmore. And they put up a couple of psychedelic posters. So I guess...
Was it the theater Jackie did his TV show from?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
What I hear they did is put up 2 of those old Bill Graham posters and renamed it.
Yeah, I can't think of 2 different icons of show business.
Yeah, really.
Bill Graham and Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, why they just didn't play up the Jackie Gleason aspect, I don't know. But then again, this is South Florida.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to it.
I feel warned.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just visit our website, filterfreeradio.com, scroll down on the left-hand side, and click on the Stitcher logo to hear us on Stitcher. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. Visit our website, filterfreeradio.com, and click on the Stitcher logo to hear us on Stitcher. Unfiltered radical truth-telling, anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
RadioOrNot.com and SoFloRadio.com present The Nicole Sandler Show. Truth to power, baby.
And welcome back to the second hour of the Nicole Sandler Show. So good to be with you, broadcasting live. It is Monday, April 28th, 2014. Jacob Dean here, Nicole Sandler filling in for Randy Rhodes nationwide, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, all of this week. The last week, Nicole Sandler will be filling in for the Randy Rhodes Show. As you know, Randy Rhodes Show going off the air in a couple of weeks. This is not a week to miss it. RandyRhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, with the one and only Nicole Sandler. Honor and privilege to be here with you this morning. We want to invite your participation into the show. As always, our telephone number, 503-746-TALK, and all callers go to the front of the line. This hour, and well, rather show, we've been talking about the 15now.org movement, Shama Savant's campaign and victory over corporate cash for the city council in Seattle. And there are some questions you may have. Things like, aren't most minimum wage workers just teenagers earning pocket money? No. 75% of minimum wage workers are over 20 years old. Well, shouldn't workers who want to earn more get an education than a better job? Well, in fact, if you take a look at what's happening in education, in the for-profit education takeover, the profitizing of the education systems, today promises students more debt than more opportunity. Well, what about, can businesses actually even afford to pay $15 an hour? Like, that's going to raise costs, and then they're going to pass that cost on to the consumer. The reality is Starbucks, McDonald's, Subway, Pizza Hut, all the big, all the above corporations are raking in mega extreme profits, and CEO salaries and bonuses are at record all-time highs. I know when you keep hearing things like that, it's like, well, you kind of, become immune to the information. But the reality is that's what's going on. The CEO of Yum Brands, KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, he made over $20 million last year. And that's just in 1 year. Meanwhile, he won't pay his workers $7.50 an hour. You know, it's ridiculous. Well, what about the small businesses? What about the small businesses that can't afford to pay $15 an hour? Workers at the small businesses should make a living wage just like everyone else, and that the government, which currently spends billions on handouts and tax breaks for giant multinational corporations such as Boeing and Goldman Sachs, cut off welfare to big businesses and instead provide necessary subsidies to small businesses to allow them to pay the workers $15 an hour. The money is there, friends. It's there. Well, won't an increase in the minimum wage just cause inflation? When the minimum wage was first instituted, and every time it has been raised since then, there have been dire predictions that it would cause an immediate steep increase in prices. However, these apocalyptic predictions fail. And the reality is when the workers have more money in their pockets, they have more buying power. They're able to buy more of the product. That drives down the cost. It balances out. Well, won't increasing the minimum wage be a job killer? Let's remember, friends, that greed and the criminals on Wall Street and corporate America are the real job killers here. They're the ones who crash the economy, not low-wage workers. They're the ones who won't pay you and I a living wage and are killing off jobs right and left to maintain their profit margins and their uber extreme, undeserving millions and millions and millions of dollars. Paying $15 an hour to tens of millions of workers will increase the amount that they and their families can spend on the goods and services, which can provide a huge boost to the economy. All that good jazz. And I mean, there's so much to it. So if you have any of these questions, if you'd like to talk about the minimum wage, give us a call. I have to start getting to some of the good stuff here. And I want to share with you first about a 10-minute video. And this is going to take us down to the bottom of the hour here. But this is kind of essentially the beginning of Shama Savant's speech. And actually, before we go to the video, ask and you shall receive. The comment line is open, and folks can participate in the conversation unfiltered. 503-746-TALK. And again, it's just me here. So when you call that number, it's going to ring and ring and ring. I'll pick up, and then you'll be live on the air. And I have someone who's live on the air in the 708 area code. And if you want to tell folks your first name and what's on your mind. And again, thanks for calling.
Hello. Will from Chicago here.
Hey, it's Will from Chicago from the chat room. Where's my little thingy here? Participating in the chat room at radioornot.com. Will, great to hear from you, buddy. What's on your mind?
Good to hear from you. A few comments related vis-a-vis the minimum wage issue. One of the key concerns about minimum wage is that it is not a living wage. If we had kept pace with inflation since the 1960s, my understanding that the minimum wage would now be on the order of about $15 or $16. Instead, over the last 30 years, and longer, most of the increases in productivity have not gone to those working, but rather the executive classes, because today's CEO, instead of earning perhaps 20 times as much as the typical floor worker, which was the norm during the 1950s, is now making about 200 to 400 times, which is why there's a lot of income inequality. And income inequality is not healthy for a democracy. I'm sure you've seen the recent study from Princeton arguing that the U.S. is now officially an oligarchy as opposed to a democracy.
Yep.
When the bottom 50% seldom get their concerns addressed by Congress and politicians in general, it is cause for concern. Fortunately, there are ways to deal with it. A key thing is organization, simply because mass movements are one of the few things that change this country. And similarly, cultivating political allies. There's a great article a few years back from Sarah Robinson on Alternate, which she argues there's a need for both an inside and outside strategy. Namely, we need people who will protest, but we also need people to publicize things like you are doing, like Nicole Sandler is doing, like Randy Rhoads has done, like Bob Kincaid does over at the Head On Radio Network.
Yeah.
But we also need allies inside the wheels of power who can just say, guys, if you don't listen to these people now, it's going to get a lot worse. And does that work? Yes. I know who saw massive environmental protests and listened. Richard Milhous Nixon. Yes, a man who could hardly be called the spirit of democracy, realized he needed to do something because of the protests.
Yeah.
So I think we need to take some pages from past social movements and also, ironically, take a page from the Tea Party, which had its people go into local level politics, precinct captains, county boards and the like, and be the people who slate the candidates. And if you're happy with the third party, that's an option as well, although one of my professors did have a funny false title for a book on third parties in America. He said, because too often it divides a base, you could write a book called Kicking Our Own Ass, The History of Third Parties in America. But they can be at least useful on a local level and in generating ideas. Let's remember, a lot of FDR's policies were earlier promulgated in the 1900s and 1910s by the progressive and populist parties. So remember, this is a long haul. We are not going to change things overnight, but guess what? We will change things because if not us, who? There's an old story from the Talmud where a man is planting a tree and his neighbor runs up to him and says, look, you have to come with me now, the Messiah has come. The man continues planting his tree, cleans his hands and says, okay, let's see if this Messiah of yours is real. The point of the story, we do the work every day, whether it's glamorous or not, and then if we find any great leaders to help us, so be it. But regardless, we have to do the work, since if not us, who?
Amen. Will, yes. Will from Chicago in the chat room at radioornot.com, always participating. And Will, brother, I'm so with you. I know I do. We always on Filter Free Radio, we're always focusing on the outside system game rather than the inside system game. And this is why I wanted to spend a couple of minutes today on the Nicole Sandler Show, and we're going to talk about this tonight on Filter Free Radio. Talk about Shama Savant and talk about how you can get active on the inside game without corporate cash, maintain your moral integrity, stand up for we the people, and all of that said, you can succeed. And I'm so with you, dude. And this is why more people need to know about the Shama Savant story. More people need to know about Nicholas Caleb running for city council in Portland, our own Shama Savant, if you will. And people need to get active and participate, and at whatever level you can, on the grassroots activism levels, on the basic levels, on the local levels, on the state levels, and eventually we do all that. We'll build platforms on the national levels. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Consider this. A lot of social movements begin not with a huge national meeting, but with people gathering together and saying they have a grievance. One of the few cases where a movement began with a national meeting was the Seneca Falls Conference and women's suffrage. But very often you have people gathering saying, okay, I'm not happy with these working conditions people are going through in my community. I'm tired of getting food where I don't know what conditions they're being processed and organized, and it builds Dean, we have to remember, even as we look for national leaders, we have to do the work on the ground first, because if we don't, who's going to support people at the local level? And with local offices, you can make change. There's a story that ran on the Four Freedoms blog about a woman in Ithaca, New York, who received $150,000, the world's largest environmental prize, for opposing fracking. And her work in her local community in Ithaca, New York, has been used as a model by towns, not only through New York, but as far away as California.
Mm-hmm.
It's that local activism that ultimately serves as a base for others to build on. So what may be done in Portland, Chicago, or Ithaca, New York, may serve as a model for others. Let's not underestimate our own powers. And today, with the Internet, we can share a lot more ideas. Mind you, we're going to have to fight for net neutrality, but if we make enough of a fuss, they do back down, simply because the oligarchs, and I will use that term, realize they ultimately need a public. Because if we get too angry, well, they get kind of nervous. We might actually, I don't know, repeal the Reagan tax cuts, or some of them, such as the Koch brothers, are probably so paranoid they probably just have that scene of the villagers with pitchforks from the movie Frankenstein running over and over again in their minds.
Right.
Now, I will, of course, apologize for anyone thinking I am remotely comparing the fictional creation of Mary Shelley with the Koch brothers, because that is an insult to animated dead flesh, comparing that to the Koch brothers.
Yes, sir. I'm so with you. I actually, my dad has a Frankenstein mask, for Halloween, and it's actually from Universal Studios in like 1960 something. And maybe one of these days I'll put it on and do a show with it on.
Yes, but outwardly, even with a mask, you would still look better than the Koch brothers do on the inside.
Thank you.
But I think what we have to remember is, too often we forget our own power to make change in our own communities. I mean, consider this. A few weeks back, I was talking to Bob Kincaid, and he was in Washington campaigning on the AIC Act, which is an act that will look at the effects of mountaintop removal on the health of people in Appalachian communities.
Sure.
And how did that work? How did that act get proposed before Congress? Simply because people got fed up. They organized. They said, what can we do? And several of them said, well, let's see if we can have a health study done to prove that this is harming us, even though we know, and then we can take action.
Right.
Again, our own power. If you do not believe in yourself, who will? There's a very old saying from Hilary Sage, an older contemporary, or near contemporary of one, Jesus of Nazareth, who said, if I am not for myself, who will be? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? We have to think of the urgency of now, because that's all we have. But we also have to remember, even while we're worried about ourselves, we must be our brother's keeper, because if not, who's going to be? Are we going to rely on the goodness of people who like Donald Sterling, a man who apparently categorizes human beings as falling into different classes, and who would probably like to be able to pay his basketball players less than minimum wage?
Betcha.
Who I would have to honestly ask, would he have been content to have them reduced to chattel slavery?
Yeah.
But we have to realize our own power, and that is what the mighty fear. For those who think that they run the world, their greatest fear is that the people will wake up, realize that they are strong, and demand justice. No, not domination, not the guillotine, but rather saying, we want to be part of societies where we matter, where our voices matter, where we can work an honest day's wage and get an honest day's pay, and make sure that we and our kids, our communities, are safe, that we are not inhaling poisons, we are not drinking poisons,
Right.
and that we are not on a planet that is going to become so rough to live on that we may need to terraform Terra itself.
Amen. Will. Not everybody gets 3 cheers when they call in to the show. Will from Chicago gets 4 cheers. Will, I love the call, man. Brilliant contribution to the show as always. And
I'd urge people to call into you because as someone who's worked with a few radio people out in Phoenix, I will say that after this point in the show, one's voice gets tired, so please save Jacob's voice because he's working tonight.
Hey.
And this way, Skeptical Scott doesn't have to work overtime with a voice.
I appreciate that, Will. Thank you very much, buddy. And it's great to talk to you, man. Give us a shout again, and folks can participate with Will in the chat room at radioornot.com in the conversation just about every day, so more or less. So, Will, it's always great to hear from you, buddy. Keep up the good fight. Hope to hear from you soon. All right, bye-bye. Again, let's not forget that you can also participate in the conversation, 503-746-TALK. I'm going to move along here and go rather quickly because, and I'm going to skip a couple of things. So that means that if you want to tune in and watch Nicholas Caleb for City Council's speech, you're going to have to listen tonight on Filter Free Radio. And if you want to hear, in my personal opinion, my favorite speech of the whole event from Ajumu Umi of the All Africans People's Revolutionary Party in Portland, Oregon, you're going to have to tune in tonight to Filter Free Radio, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, right here at radioornot.com. Also, all of our work, everything is available for free at our website, filterfreeradio.com. And now, without further ado, I want to play a little bit of Shama Savant's speech for you at this event, which is absolutely amazing. The star of the show, right? And then, before we end tonight, I saved the best for last and the moment that hopefully we've all been waiting for, my personal exclusive interview with Shama Savant on Shama's personal inspiration and motivation. You do not want to miss that. But first, her speech, or at least the first 10 or 12 minutes here of her speech, I want to share with you at the 15now.org event last Thursday in Portland, Oregon. Enjoy.
For your patience. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your activism and building 15 Now. I cannot apologize to you enough for making you all wait, and you have no idea how much I appreciated your patience. That's okay.
Yeah.
The whole topic of the headlines in Seattle today has been about the mayor's committee and what they did do or did not do. But what the corporate media will systematically leave out in their narratives is that we would not be talking about $15 an hour had it not been for grassroots efforts. We made this happen. The mayor of Seattle will not want to admit it, but we know the truth, that it was fast food workers, the labor movement that made CTAC Prop 1 happen, and our historic campaign to get a socialist elected to Seattle City Council.
Woo!
And look how there can be tidal waves of change even in short periods of time. When we launched our campaign last year, it had been only a few months since the fast food workers in New York City had courageously marched out of their jobs demanding 15 and a union. And I would like to take a moment for all of us to imagine the tremendous courage that you need as a low-wage worker when you have no other cushion in your life, nothing else, nothing and nobody else to stand by you, to take your life in your hands, know that your employer will retaliate against you, that you will probably lose your job, your only source of livelihood, and yet to do that, not just for themselves, but for everybody else among the working class. That's the real solidarity that is latent amongst us in the working class that we have to bring to the fore. And the fast food workers have shown far, far more courage than I could ever show. And I really want to salute them with an applause. The social conditions obviously came from the capitalist system, but the courage to speak out against it, the willingness to stand out against the status quo, really is built in by the system, and it all started in this age today for us. It started with the Occupy movement, and despite all the many disparaging stories in corporate media about the unwashed young people who just needed to go and get a job, Occupy did us such a tremendous service. Occupy ended the silence on economic inequality and injustice. And in 2012, in the wake of the winding down of Occupy, when all people, whether you want to call them liberal, left, progressive, whatever, were all told by the Democratic Party establishment, you better stop all this and hunker down and do GOTV, get out the vote for Obama, get out the vote for all the Democrats, because that's what you're supposed to do as a good liberal. Obama and the Democratic Party establishment has betrayed us on every count. Whether you talk about...
Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
Whether you talk about deportations or domestic surveillance or income inequality or the Keystone XL pipeline and climate change, we have seen nothing change. Instead, there has been an intensification of attacks against public education. And I can tell you firsthand, because I'm a community college teacher, and I have seen our budgets being squeezed out. 70% of the union I belong to is adjunct faculty, including myself. We don't know from one quarter to the next if we're going to have a job. We have no benefits, no question of health care. So we're not just talking about fast food workers, we are talking about a whole array of the 99% that has been completely left behind, being pushed into the darkness of the race to the bottom, while the millions, and not just millions, but billions, and not just billions, but trillions are being accumulated by the real minority at the top, and that is somehow being justified by both parties. And in 2012, when we were being told that Socialist Alternative decided we're not going to simply argue against the Democrats in principle, we're going to show what a real independent working class candidate looks like. And we ran against the Democratic Speaker of the House, Frank Chop, and we stunned the establishment by our temerity to run against the most important and the most powerful, arguably the most powerful Democrat in the state. And we got 29% of the vote.
Woo!
That's 20,000 votes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we took that momentum into our campaign for city council. At the same time, the CTAG battle was starting to shape up. And look, as I was saying, look how quickly things changed. At this time last year, people were laughing at us. The media and the political pundits who've been hyperactive since we got elected were poo-pooing this idea of $15 an hour. And, let alone the idea of an about socialist being elected. That was beyond the pale. And we put this on the agenda. We ran on a campaign of $15 an hour minimum wage for all workers in Seattle, taxing the rich to fund mass transit and education, and affordable housing and rent control. They said none of this would happen. None of this would see the light of day. And yet, towards the sort of halftime of the campaigning season, we could see that something was changing. And just before the campaign ended, less than a month before election day, the mayor, the person who's now the mayor, Ed Murray, who was running for mayor last year, came out in support of $15 an hour. And this, my friends, is not a victory for the Democratic Party establishment. This is a victory for us because we forced them to stop ignoring it. We made it impossible. We made it politically unviable for the leading mayoral candidate to ignore this. They were afraid that they might actually lose the election if they did not come out in support of 15. That's the power of majority opinion.
Yeah. Woo!
Since the election, we have launched the 15 Now grassroots campaign, and I'm so delighted that we have this force developing in Portland as well. I'm delighted that we have an independent candidate who is running for city council. These are important developments. And while we launched the grassroots campaign, while we have been urging others like us in the working class to run as independent candidates, while we have been taking the voice of the working class in Seattle to all over the nation, the mayor set up a committee which admittedly included me and included many members of the labor movement, also included the Seattle's Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. Do you know who the Chamber of Commerce represents? It represents Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon.com, Starbucks, Nordstrom's, Target, Walmart, Sam's Club. These are the people who were invited to the table to make a decision on the fates of 100,000 workers in Seattle who make the city run and yet continue to live in poverty.
Boo!
And the way events have shaped so far have proved us right in our predictions that regardless of how much support the establishment says it is going to give us on 15, it is never going to be a substitute for building on the ground. And let us never forget that we can never be complacent. On the contrary, we haven't done enough. We need to keep building, keep mobilizing. And what has happened on the committee? When the committee was formed, I agreed to join that committee on the condition that I would not be bound to any restrictions on my activism outside the committee. And it was good. It was a positive thing that the mayor agreed to that without, unbegrudgingly. But the reality is that the forces that are going to be arrayed against $15 an hour are going to be active regardless of any one person's good or bad intentions. So I would urge you that whether it is the question of the mayor of Seattle or Obama or anybody else, it is not, our job is not to sit and speculate what is going on in their brains. It is not our job to be mind readers. Our job is to understand the nature of class struggle. And the nature of class struggle as it is in the United States is that both the Democratic and Republican parties are working in the interests of big business and the super wealthy.
Yep.
So no matter what the mayor says, no matter what he pledges, he, unlike us, is answerable to the Starbucks lobbyists, to the McDonald's lobbyists, to Amazon.com. We are not answerable to them because we did not take a dime of their money.
Yeah! Woo!
And we are setting an example of what kind of politics the working class needs. The working class needs independent candidates who are bold in stating their allegiance, their loyalty. Our loyalty is only to the working class, to those who are oppressed and marginalized. Our loyalty is not to the CEOs, and we don't apologize. We don't apologize for that. And at every step of the way, we were told that's too much, that's too in your face. You should be timid. You should tone it down. Well, whatever they were hoping, it ended up having the opposite effect. The Mayor's Committee was set up with the idea of coming up with what the mayor said, and it's not just him, it's the whole political establishment, what they call a reasonable solution for the problem of income inequality. And to find this reasonable solution, a committee was formed that was half populated by the very forces that have been responsible for this income inequality. The very corporations that keep their workers in poverty. And so we had predicted going in that this committee is not going to be capable of coming up with a solution that actually works for the working people of Seattle, for low-wage workers. And for 4.5 months, this committee has met and has deliberated many hours. I was there for at least for the full committee discussions. There was a lot of private discussions that I was not part of course. But as a committee, we met for several hours. We had economists from the University of Washington and UC Berkeley come in and give us absolutely thorough and academically rigorous analysis from 1,500 different studies that show decisively that putting a substantial increase of wages in the pockets of low-wage workers not only improves their standards of living, but has a boosting impact on the local economy. At first, the discussion around the table was, who said 15? Well, one of the business owners I talked to said, I'm editing some of his choicest words here, but he said, I am outraged that I have to be here discussing 15. My workers are black and Latino kids who don't know anything. I have to show them how to clean a toilet with a toilet brush. I have to show them how to chop a tomato. Why should I be paying these workers 15? They should be paying me for all their... in public, and we should acknowledge this as a victory for the movement, because they are no longer able to say that and yet be considered, good human beings.
Yeah! Woo! Woo!
Heck yeah. Now, I'll tell you, if you want to watch the rest of Kshama Sawant's speech, Seattle Council member Kshama Sawant's speech, you can go to our website at filterfreeradio.com, or you can tune in to Filter Free Radio live tonight right here at radioornot.com and Nicole Sandler's Radio or Not Network. We broadcast Filter Free Radio live 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, real quickly, a couple of points. First of all, let me mention, also, not only is Kshama Sawant and her campaign and 15 Now going around and educating and mobilizing we the people, but the reality is they're also fundraising, because Kshama Sawant did not take a dime of corporate money. They were fundraising at the event. I still think they need a little bit of help to retire the campaign debt. They spoke about that at the event. They only acquired $10,000 in total debt from the campaign, and as of Thursday night, last Thursday here in Portland, they had already raised about $6,000 of that, and they had their big national conference up in Seattle over the weekend. If you are interested and able to donate to that cause, and there are many causes we should be donating to, like Nicole Sandler at radioornot.com. If you can donate to that cause, the website is votesavant.org. Vote Savant, SAWANT.org is the website. I'm not paid to say that. I just believe in the cause. My other personal belief on this one is the reason why I think the establishment is getting behind the $15 an hour minimum wage, and those in the establishment and in the status quo and in the corporate state who are backing it are doing so because they know that $15 an hour does not go far enough. They know, just like you and I know, that the real minimum wage, had it been adjusted for inflation since 1968 or 69, should be around $22 an hour. And this is why I believe so many people are jumping behind the $15 an hour minimum wage movement now, is because, they're just settling for 15, so let's help them out and get behind it. And, it probably won't happen anyways, because we talked about how that will be undermined earlier in the show. But if it does happen, we're happy to settle for 15, because we're happy you're not fighting for 22. Just saying. Okay, I've saved the best for last, and we are literally out of time. So without further ado, this is the moment you've been waiting for. My exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant. This video is also available at our website, filterfreeradio.com. And this is so cool. Thank you personally, Kshama Sawant, for being an inspiration and a motivation, for setting an example of how success can be achieved and you can still maintain your moral standards and work outside the system and inside the system to make a difference. This is my personal interview, and I asked her, this is the question I asked her, please tell me about your personal inspiration and your personal motivation. Here is City Councilwoman Kshama Sawant and our exclusive interview.
I don't think there's anything unique about how I feel. I think this is something that a lot of people feel, and a lot of people are, there's a lot of churn going on through people's minds, and people are looking around them and seeing a world full of people that are completely ravaged by the system, socially, politically, economically. And for me, that was just like anybody else, that was the beginning. When I grew up in India as a child, my earliest memory was looking at the extreme poverty and deprivation and sexual violence against the poorest of women, the lower caste women, and not accepting that somehow that was preordained. That's not, that I just never accepted that that should be the way human society function. But it was not just a moral or ethical question, it was also a systemic question for me, because it was clear that there is so much wealth in society, so much technological capability in society, that there was no need for any of this misery. So clearly there were artificial there was an artificial reason why that was happening, and it clearly served the purpose of somebody somewhere. And that sort of led me to the quest to understanding Marxist analysis and understanding that this was systemic. And really, while we fight for reforms under capitalism, we have to absolutely fight against capitalism itself.
Time to overthrow the corporate state.
It is time to overthrow this exploitative system. Yes.
Amen. Thank you so much for what you do, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you go. That's the end of the show. Much love, you all. I got to thank everyone who makes it possible. First and foremost, the one and only Nicole Sandler. Thank you, Nicole, for the opportunity, the privilege, and honor to fill in for you. Again, Nicole Sandler is in for Randy Rhoads, live nationwide, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, all of this week. RandyRhoads.com, the last time, so be sure to check it out. RandyRhoads.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern with the one and only Nicole Sandler. I want to thank all of the people who are participating in the conversation. Thank you to Will from Chicago for calling into the program. Everyone at RadioOrNot.com for chatting and keeping up that conversation. Huge thanks to all the folks who made this event that I attended possible. 15now.org, Seattle Councilwoman Shama Savant, Socialist Alternative of Portland, the Fight for 15, and everyone who showed up and made a difference. Big thanks to everyone who syndicates the program. Kenny Pick for syndicating us this morning on Liberal Justice Radio. Thanks to Kevin McLeod of Incompetech.com and Dano of DanoSongs.com for music production. Thank you, first and foremost, and last but not least, for getting out there, getting active, being the change, making a difference. We will see you tomorrow live in for Nicole Sandler at RadioOrNot.com, and we will see you tonight live, Filter Free Radio, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, Mondays, RadioOrNot.com, and on our website, FilterFreeRadio.com. Much love. Keep up the good fight, y'all.
Filter Free Radio.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.